6 torres. Sencillamente la Gran Misión Vivienda nace en noviembre del 2010 en La Pedrera, un sector de la parroquia antigua donde llegó Chávez, que le solicitaba a la gente que baje, que baje, que bajaran, que bajaran. Y ese día ordenó que naciera la Gran Misión Vivienda de Venezuela para todo el territorio nacional. Gracias a esa misión se han construido en Venezuela hasta la presente fecha 2.600.000 viviendas.
Tuvimos alrededor de un mes, creo, más o menos, por ahí de lluvia, que eso era día y noche, y entonces, como realmente mi ranchito estaba en la orilla de la quebrada, fue comiendo, fue bajando, y como nosotros pagamos rancho baja. Y ahí vi todo mi coroto y todo eso, pero muchas gracias, presidente, porque este mandamiento me lo dieron por todo equipado, y eso yo lo agradezco.
Más del 73% del presupuesto de la nación es un presupuesto que está destinado al tema del aporte social. Nosotros lo vemos como una inversión social, no lo vemos como una dádiva al pueblo, no lo miramos como una obligación al gobierno, lo vemos como la inversión social que un gobierno de corte socialista, de corte progresista, puede llevar adelante en función de garantizar los mejores estadios de nuestra patria. Y es por eso que Chávez siempre lo decía. Lo importante para nosotros en la construcción del socialismo bolivariano, en la construcción del socialismo del siglo XXI, es la felicidad de nuestro pueblo, como lo decía nuestro libertador Simón Bolívar.
Hace rato que está lloviendo fuera en Venezuela, y hace rato largo que comenzó la siembra nueva. Hace rato que está lloviendo fuera en Venezuela, y hace rato largo que comenzó la siembra nueva.
They said, can someone turn the lights on? Anyway, thank you. He says that Chavez was always talking about the happiness of the people under Bolivarian socialism. Our Constitution says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? It's not the same thing at all. It's kind of a vague idea. And look at the towers, the first towers. We know what that means when those were built in our towns, right? What does it mean when buildings like that go up?
Higher rents.
And we can't pay for them.
Yeah.
Those are not for us. Nowadays, that's for the rich, because it's very expensive housing. These homes, I went to a number of different housing developments. People buy them for really a symbolic price. Everybody I talked to had their title of their home within a year or two. And they weren't like handing over all their money to buy them. It was a symbolic price, really basically for free. But they said it's not charity. You see, everyone told me it's social, those who were conscious said, it's social investment. It's not charity. It's not like we're giving it to you because we feel bad for you. It's giving it to you because you and all of us are owners of the oil, right? Didn't we say it belongs to the people? So why not use it for the people? You sell it, you make a profit. They don't even profit from it inside the country. The gasoline's free. But as I said, there's a black market in it. And there's a black market in the subsidized foods. Now, it means that a lot of food in the subsidized stores that Chavez set up, the mercados, you know, anybody could go in. Sometimes the right wing right now says, oh, you have to be a member of the Socialist Party to get a benefit. Not true. Anybody could go into the stores. Super cheap. Government paid a lot of money for it, and then they lowered the price so you could afford it. But there was theft of those goods. So what the government started to do in recent years, the last 3 years, was they had to overcome so that people would not be standing in these long lines or unable to afford the food. because it's still expensive. You go to these fancy supermarkets, big stores, packed to the gills. Every shelf is full. Fancy goods, fresh meat, every aisle full. But the price is astronomical. Why? Because even though it's a socialist government, socialist ministries, all the missions that provide free education, free healthcare, the capitalists still dominate the economy. It's still 80% controlled by the capitalists. And they just jack up the prices. When Maduro became president, the next year, he said, we're going to take on these capitalists. Sometimes people in the left go, why didn't he go more to the left? Why hasn't he taken on the capitalists? Why hasn't he done that? Well, in 2014, he made a speech and he said, some of these importers of appliances and food, he said, they make up to a 5,000% profit. They're stealing from the people. He said, in a month's time, I've set a deadline, and any company that makes more than 30% profit is going to be expropriated. What happened? That year, 2014, the violence began in the streets. Coordinated attacks by these fascist gangs. They happened everywhere at once. This was a design of the CIA. Juan Guaido, his group was created in that time too. His party, you see how that couple says that they were threatened by fascists? That was Juan Guaido's party. That's who that man represents. He comes on with a suit, talking for the media. He shows his 26-year-old wife who goes and has an audience with Trump, the First Lady. Are you kidding me? She can, if you ever heard her talk, she has nothing in her mind. She's like a spoiled brat. I'll say that. Anyway, he's a fascist. That's what his party's about. So we're going to watch what they have done to overcome the food program. They started something called CLAP. They go, okay, if the food's stolen in the stores, we're going to get it to everyone's home. And every neighborhood that wants to take part, they have to organize themselves. They provide a census of the neighborhood, how many families, how many people, and then the deliveries come. It's not just the government saying here, it's the people taking part. The communes and the communal councils, they're amazing organization of the neighborhood. This is people's power. And we'll see the CLAP program that delivers food. At this time, it was every month, but now they're doubling the deliveries to every 2 weeks. It includes the dried grains. Quickly, it's not in here. The box is this big and this big and this big. It's pretty big. One woman broke it out for me and had 3 big bags of rice, a bag about that big of lentils, black beans, flour, sugar, arepa flour bags this big, 2 liters of cooking oil, cans of tuna fish, 3 bags of pasta, quite a lot and more. It was really full, condiments and everything. And then they get the fresh protein and meat. And then you'll see things like soap, even sanitary napkins. More than 6 million families receive large quantities of food on a subsidized basis every month.
Mientras en el mercado 1 kilo de pollo tiene el costo de 10.000 bolívares soberanos, en este momento la comuna está distribuyendo a más de 1.000 familias, está distribuyendo un combo de un pollo que oscila entre 2 y 3 kilos, carne y huevos por tan solo el costo de 1.000 bolívares soberanos, es decir, que totalmente asequible los CLAP trabajando en el tema de la resistencia económica para lograr de que lleguen alimentos a bajo costo subsidiados totalmente por el Estado. Se le está llegando lo que falta, para que lo lleven a cambiar.
pueblo venezolano tiene su gobierno bolivariano que es el que nos ampara a todos, hombres, mujeres y niños, y extranjeros y venezolanos, no nada más los venezolanos. ¿Estamos claros en eso? Y que viva Maduro y viva nuestro presidente Nicolás Maduro.
Gloria, ella es la jefa de los clanes de la parroquia de Riva.
Una de las jefas.
Amarillento. Así como esta es la estructura del Estado Mayor de los
Es
clanes,
el equipo de despliegue.
que es el equipo de despliegue, todos ellos que están allí. Y aquí tienen los clanes.
Este jamón bolivariano, comunitario. Esto es lo que le cuesta son 500 bolívares. Mientras el otro le vale 2.000 y 3.000 bolívares. Bolivariano. Y lo producimos aquí en Arquino. Ese jamón se produce aquí.
No le hagan que presentar. Ella es la camarada Reina Libre. Ella es la coordinadora por el Partido Socialista de Venezuela de comunas y consejos comunales de la parroquia. Aquí hay 21 comunas y 125
198 personas comunales. Nosotros, bueno, hola.
The neighborhoods are organized through communal councils, which in turn form larger entities called communes. The people with responsibilities are elected.
Esta es una de las visiones de nuestro comandante eterno Hugo Rafael Chávez Frías, que nos mandó como comunidad a organizarnos. Y bueno, en caso de eso, haciendo caso de eso, una de las parroquias emblemáticas es Catedral, donde nos hemos organizado. Y los resultados son estos, pues el beneficio, no como dicen que nos van a mandar una ayuda humanitaria donde es un desecho que nos iban a mandar, mientras que nosotros tenemos aquí la comida organizadamente. Eso.
You see how confident they are, and all the people helping, and the women, and they're very working class, you can tell. You can tell they're not rich. But they're their own agents. We're gonna watch now, is it okay if we watch 2 more little videos?
Yeah.
The next one is this remarkable woman. And the funny thing is, I'll just tell you a little aside. When I mentioned her name to the opposition, they go, oh my God. They do that every time. Because she's so demonized. Because they have all these stories to demonize her. And she is a revolutionary. Her name is Edith Varela. You can see she's very strong. She was put in charge of the reforming of the whole prison system. And we'll talk about that later. Yes.
Just like, could we concept to be a video?
Yeah, okay.
Or a program?
Okay,
Does anybody have a problem?
Is it better if I move out to?
all right.
No, we can do it. Is it okay if we do it from the back? They won't see.
Yeah, from the back.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
What we're doing is showing the Venezuelans, because we're like, how is it going? They love the fact that we're going all over the country and tell people their truth.
And also
So, like,
like to move out.
in it-
Like,
Pardon?
I can also move out.
No, it's okay, because then it'll be an empty seat. So, it's hard to take a picture where you show how many people there are in a town like Long Beach. It's important. Like, we have a picture of 2 campuses where all the youth at the end of the presentation raise their hand that they're against the war. It's powerful, They would never have known otherwise. But she was put in charge in 2013 for the reform of the whole prison system. That's not what this interview is about. Remember, we went to the bridges at the western border with Colombia when Trump tried to force that so-called humanitarian aid, which was just a Trojan horse. It was fake. I won't go into details so we don't stay real long, because we're almost done. And, yes,
Weren't those bridges already closed for like 2 years, like inoperable?
well, yeah, it's really interesting, the media, because people didn't pay attention to that detail, but yes, at that time, the U.S. said that Venezuela shut down the bridge, the big Tienditas bridge, modern bridge, because they're just mean to Colombia. Won't open the bridge. The bridge was never opened. It was built entirely by Venezuela. They built it, but Colombia refuses to engage in negotiations to have customs and immigration at the bridge. You'll see some of why. It's because they like the contraband, and they don't want to have to police it. Because Colombia has a huge economic crisis. People are dying of hunger. Babies are dying of famine on the other side of the bridge. Do you know that? Cucuta. Huge infant mortality. But you don't hear about it. You only hear about Venezuela. Babies don't die of hunger in Venezuela. You don't see hungry babies in Venezuela. It's a world that's upside down, turned right side up in Venezuela. So what you said was important. They blame Venezuela for not having an open bridge, but it's because Colombia refuses to participate. We were stuck in Táchira for 4 days because there was no gasoline, and you'll see why. Iris Varela is the next video. Thank you all. Thank you for helping on this.
Iris Varela, ministra del Poder Popular para el Servicio Penitenciario, a su orden.
Y me estaba explicando lo que es el bachaqueo aquí en Táchira con cuestión de la gasolina.
Sí, bueno, el bachaqueo es una palabra que se acuñó para identificar a un delito que se comete con los productos subsidiados del pueblo venezolano. Venezuela siempre ha tenido una política muy grande de subsidios para que el pueblo venezolano pueda acceder con facilidad a los insumos, a los bienes, a los servicios, al combustible. Y aquí en el estado Táchira, yo soy oriunda de aquí, de San Cristóbal. Este es el estado fronterizo, de una frontera muy amplia con Colombia. Aquí mismo donde fue el escenario de la victoria popular el día de ayer, 23 de febrero, tanto en el puente de Santander que divide Ureña de Colombia, como el puente Tienditas, que nunca se ha puesto operativo, y el puente internacional Simón Bolívar, que divide San Antonio, también de Cúcuta, del norte de Santander. Así que toda esta línea fronteriza está también permeada por miles de trochas, caminos improvisados, caminos ilegales, que abren las personas oriundas de Colombia para venir a buscar aquí todos los productos subsidiados y sacarlos. Como lo sacan por esa vía, eso se le llama bachaquear. Es contrabando de extracción, es el contrabando de nuestros productos. No lo pasan, por supuesto, por los puentes fronterizos. Como es un delito, lo meten por las trochas, le decimos nosotros, camino verde, caminos improvisados, no para ocultarse, porque están cometiendo un delito y entonces lo pasan por allí. Y son miles de millones de litros de combustible, tanto gasolina como diésel, que desde que yo tengo uso de razón se ha llevado bandas organizadas de Colombia para allá, para surtirse. Incluso es tal el descaro que en Colombia sacaron una resolución y allá legalizaron el contrabando. Las estaciones de servicio que uno veía allí eran los pimpineros. Cada persona, uno pasaba la línea fronteriza para allá y veía puras pimpinas llenas de combustible venezolano. La gente, bueno, se acostumbró a eso, a llevarse la gasolina, porque aquí es regalada. Pero es regalada porque el gobierno nacional, el gobierno revolucionario la subsidia para su pueblo. Y ese subsidio, pues, es oro puro, ¿no? Incluso aquí llegó a ser más lucrativo contrabandear el combustible y los alimentos y los productos subsidiados de Venezuela que transportar droga, decíamos nosotros. Por supuesto que Colombia es un narcoestado, no todo el mundo lo sabe. Está calificada como el mayor país productor de drogas del mundo. Uno no sabe qué tanto hacen las bases militares gringas allí, será que están cuidando el negocio, dice uno. Pero bueno, esa es la triste realidad de lo que ha pasado aquí en la frontera con lo que es el bachaqueo, que es contrabando de extracción, desde hace mucho tiempo. Y nosotros hoy estamos victoriosos, estamos muy orgullosos de nuestro pueblo, de lo que pasó el día de ayer con nuestro pueblo que ha sufrido tanto esta embestida de la guerra económica y guerra psicológica y guerra híbrida y las amenazas. Y bueno, lamentablemente el señor Donald Trump, en un acto de esquizofrenia, salió a dirigir él personalmente toda esta operación contra el pueblo venezolano, y lo que lograron fue despertar nuestro patriotismo, ¿no? Que en realidad nunca ha estado dormido. Nosotros los venezolanos somos patriotas y por nuestra patria estamos dispuestos a ofrendar la vida. Decíamos antes del episodio de ayer que nosotros nunca nos imaginamos que íbamos a tener la gran oportunidad de vivir lo que se vivió aquí hace hace más de 200 años que tenemos de independencia, que es tener que salir a enfrentar nuestra patria contra imperios, así como lo hicimos hace 200 y más años contra el imperio español que dominaba estas tierras. Hoy los hijos de Bolívar y de Chávez salimos nuevamente a plantarle cara al imperio. Con nuestro corazón de patriotas nos paramos en esos puentes, hombres, mujeres y niños de todas las edades, y estamos dispuestos a ofrender nuestra vida. Gracias a Dios, aquí estamos sanos y salvos y cantando Victoria Popular.
She's a tough woman. Now we're gonna watch the next video. We were there for 4 days in Táchira on the western part looking for gas. We finally got it. But she is from the Ministry of Penitentiary Service. The prisons of Venezuela were dungeons. They were a nightmare for women and men. Great violence in the men's prisons. There were some that were so notorious that they had, gangs. There was one time in which they even had a 50mm machine gun. The prisoners. The guards were also armed, The women in one prison, they had no help, they had nothing. The women didn't even have uniforms. It was just, they're left to their own devices. And one young woman, she's not in my video right now, I spent 7 hours in the prison, women and men. And she said that they used to engage in knife fights, the women. They would fight over clothes, fight over shoes. She said we would get our knives and our blades, get in a circle, we called it Coliseo, Coliseum, gladiator fight. And that they would go for it. And that the woman who won the fight was the new leader. And she's completely changed. They came in and Edith Varela was put in charge, and she said what we did was the men were terrified by the violence, because not everybody was involved in that. You see a lot of that in these prisons. Violence by the guards, violence among themselves many times. And they looked for the men who wanted to change things inside, and they brought them out. And they helped, to create a new culture. Now they have uniforms, now they exercise, they have work, study, sports. And you'll see a beginning scene. This is what the women do, and the men. They engage in exercise that you can see is a lot of cooperation. It's exercise, it's discipline. And I said to her, well, it's almost like a military exercise. She goes, no, it's not military. She said, it's cadence. And she said, it teaches us discipline. She goes, we comb our hair, we have to be dressed, we have to look good. We work, and then we work 8 to 4 in the morning. And she said, and it teaches us to be ladies. These are her words. And she's not in here, but you'll see some scenes. This one's short.
¡Bomba! 15. ¡Bomba! 28.
tratamos de ensamblarlo, de lijarlos, de, bueno, ponerle la malaca, del secado, de todo lo que respecta a ello. Para ser maestro, como 10 años, por lo menos, para especializarse en la materia. Pero pues nosotras en menos de un año, este es nuestro primer violín elaborado.
Para llevarlo afuera, para ya incursionarnos a la vida, ya esto sería un buen comienzo.
¿Qué le gusta de este trabajo?
Yo siento que cuando ya lo tomamos así así original, ya nos enamoramos del instrumento y lo hacemos como de nosotros, lo tomamos como si fueran nuestros hijos. Lo primero que ordena es un baño de aceite para ir quitando la porosidad al instrumento. Y entonces con la luz ellos secan más rápido por el clima húmedo que se presenta aquí en el norte.
De verdad que los instrumentos aquí son de muy buena calidad.
She's the director of that prison.
Todo gracias al convenio chino y a nuestra ministra Riva, que cumple los lineamientos de nuestro presidente Nicolás Maduro, el legado de nuestro comandante interno, don Rafael Chávez Fría. Aquí está el sello de nuestro comandante. Tenemos nuestro centro, nuestro establecimiento convertido en centro de formación para el arte, la música, el estudio, el trabajo, el deporte, la cultura. En la Cuarta República fuimos excluidos, ahora somos incluidos, tenemos participación protagónica, que eso es lo que otros países no lo ven. Esto es un modelo socialista. Estos son ideales de Simón Bolívar, que lo sacó a la luz como Rafael Chávez Fría, que lastimosamente él cumplió aquí, ¿verdad?, su parte terrenal, pero para eso está Nicolás Maduro y todo su equipo de trabajo, que yo confío en ellos, como confío plenamente en Dios, para seguir el legado del presidente. Y muchos otros proyectos que se van a crear en Venezuela, pero necesitamos que nos dejen trabajar. Necesitamos que, bueno, lo digo con responsabilidad propia, Carolina Salcedo, necesitamos que los presidentes, como el presidente de Estados Unidos, dejen trabajar esta revolución. Porque esto es de Chávez, esto es primeramente Dios, luego Simón Bolívar, luego Chávez, ahí está Nicolás Maduro dando la cara con nosotros. Entonces necesitamos eso, necesitamos más trabajo, necesitamos que nos permitan trabajar.
If the U.S. were to succeed, they would crush the leadership. They've already named a number of them as supposed narco traffickers because they're putting a jacket on them like, we're going to deep six them if we capture them. And probably kill them too. They want to kill Nicolás Maduro. But the people will also be crushed. There would very likely be a fascist regime because you can't get people to give up their oil, you can't get them to give up the things they have without that. When Juan Guaidó declared himself president on January 23rd, one of the first things he said, because they were, what are you for? He said, we're going to end the housing mission. Get rid of that. It's a waste of money. That's how they think. And it's, Juan Guaidó is a pure puppet. He's given the platform in the world. The U.S. endorsed him within hours. Canada, Europe, the right-wing governments of Latin America, they're putting his full pressure. He's a nothing. He has no power. And he's losing this supposed popularity among the right wing quickly because he keeps failing. Because he has no popular power behind him. And so it's the U.S. They've stolen Venezuela's gold, oil. They've taken over Venezuela's gold property and oil property in many countries. They are strangling the country. I don't want to go into detail because it's huge, but they really plan, they want to do is kill people. If you block all their medicine, you're killing them. If you're blocking their means to buy food, you're killing them. It's called genocide. So I think I'll end there. What did you think of the prison video? Interesting, wasn't it?
It's great. Why are all these European countries siding with the United States?
I think we'll start, the question and answer, and I'll sit down for right now. Someone sit
Thank you, Gloria, for that amazing work with that. And before we begin the discussion section, I just want to start off by saying, since Gloria is traveling around like 35 cities in the country alone, and we are a grassroots organization, we don't get any corporate sponsorship, no super PAC donations. It's all from like the people that we support that generously give like everything they can. There's going to be somebody going around with a donation bucket, and we would just like if you could have anything to spare, just donate what you can. We also have merch table in the back if you want to purchase t-shirts in that way. And yeah. We'll begin our discussion section, and as a reminder, we ask everyone to limit their comments and questions to 2 minutes, just so everyone else can have a chance to speak. And
you had a question, Julia. Julia Seymour. Should I answer that question? Julia, Ms. Sewell, you were asking why the European powers support the U.S.?
Yes.
Well, if you've seen, you know, in recent years, the Allies, sometimes begrudgingly, other times enthusiastically, are aligned with the U.S. because they're imperialists too. They were pulled into the war against Iraq, but they're
And
Syria. Oh, and Syria too. Yeah. No, they see that they're going to gain also from this war, but sometimes they have differences. But England, France, Spain, Italy, I think, was the only country that wasn't going along with the U.S. But Canada, Justin Trudeau, the liberal, he's been vicious against Venezuela and Cuba. He's increased sanctions against Cuba, which hadn't happened before. And he's applied sanctions against Venezuela. Probably they see it as oil. I mean, look what Canada has done with the fracking and the tar sands oil and pushing for the XL pipeline, the DAPL, all the things. It's the drive for the profit. And the right-wing governments are some that used to be leftward-leaning governments that were overthrown by parliamentary coup or, you know, just various factors. But now they're all lined up against, about 14 of them are lined up against Venezuela. Mexico is different because the basically leftist president, López Obrador, won the election, and he has stood by Maduro saying he is elected. He's offered, you know, to intervene in mediation. That's been helpful.
do you have any other questions?
So, can you explain me what's the main reason that some people are starving? Because I know some people have relatives there and they tell me like people are hungry and...
Well, people will say a lot of things. People who have relatives there, people who live here. 99.9% of the people who live here are opposition. They came here years ago. They had money to leave. No poor person ever left Venezuela. You don't see poor immigrants from Venezuela. The people who come here have money.
Yeah, I'm not talking about Venezuelans living here. I know like some
Yes,
people from...
I know. But the